it'll now be my pleasure to moderate today's keynote conversation. We'll be discussing the new Center for Architecture and Design, focusing on the architect's perspective and the motivations for fueling the project. I'm pleased to introduce Joshua Aidlin. Joshua Aidlin is a founding partner of Aidlin Darling Design, formed with David Darling in 1998. He brings over 30 years of design experience in architecture, interiors, furniture design, product design, and sculpture. Aidlin Darling Design rigorously explores design across a wide variety of scales, programs, and disciplines, with the goal of enabling poetic, sustainable, and appropriate solutions. The firm has garnered over 250 regional, national, and international awards, including the first AIA Coat Top 10 Plus Green Project Award, 2 International Civic Trust Awards, 6 National AIA Awards, and 2 James Beard Awards. In 2013, Aidlin Darling was bestowed a National Design Award from the Smithsonian's Cooper Hewitt National Design Museum for the firm's full body of work. It's been our privilege to engage Aidlin Darling Design to create the vision of the new Center for Architecture and Design. We begin our keynote conversation, or before we begin our keynote conversation, I invite Josh to provide a brief presentation on the project.
Okay, can you all see that? All right. Well, first of all, it's quite an honor to give you all an update on the new headquarters for the AIASF and the Center for Architecture and Design. It's been a true labor of love for the past year and a half. And I'm going to go through this quite quickly and get to the Q&A, because a lot of what you're about to see, you've actually been presented between Jessica's presentation and the video. But I wanted to reflect and highlight a couple points. One is, obviously, the SFAIA has been around for a good 140 years. And as you know, it's a very internal organization historically. And in the last 15, 16 years, it has been breaking that mold and becoming a much more public-oriented entity that's really focused on inspiring and educating the entire community of every demographic and of every age. And that's taken another step. There's been a pivot that's happened in mid-design process, which is, I feel, quite exciting. And that is, instead of holding it close to our chest, the architectural community, opening it up to the broader design community, embracing graphic design, product design, interior design, landscape, and architecture as a holistic design endeavor, and really aggressively reaching out to the youth of our community, just like they do in Europe and in Asia and in Latin America, and really raise the bar on the culture and the understanding of the value of design in our everyday lives. And how do we bring the youngest to the forefront, in addition to the collegiate and the professional? And as you well know, the Center for Architecture and Design has some 400 programs that they are promoting and engaging in throughout the year. The problem is, it's a somewhat homeless entity. And finally, in another year, we're going to have a home, and we're going to have this cultural center that will be tremendously rigorous. So the real question is, what is the next 140 years going to look like? And the board and the director made a very, very critical and intelligent decision, as we see it. And instead of moving the AIA out of the Holiday Building, they just slid down 6 floors to the street front. So there's an ideal 50-foot glass facade, which is now going to create this incredibly dynamic public institution. And in addition, it's important to note that when you are working with nonprofits who are serving the underserved in our community, one of the biggest challenges is having the parents and the children have the ability to easily access your institution. Being close to public transportation is paramount. And that's one of the key ingredients to the siting of the cultural center. And I'm going to repeat a bit of what some people may have already seen. Again, it's coming to fruition, this idea of a truly cross-pollinated center, which embraces a design cafe bookstore, exhibition spaces, black box theater, large and small meeting rooms, in addition to the headquarters. And again, as I said, this incredible large facade allows for this porous engagement of street life and inversely adopting the energy from the street life into the center, and the center inspiring the public. Sustainability, as you can imagine, is going to be paramount, and it has been paramount in the design and will be in the build. And then just stepping back into history and taking inspiration from San Francisco's, we are and have been a global icon as an incubator and a launch pad for revolutionary progressive narrative. Starting with, in the 1960s, Allen Ginsberg, the Beat Poets, they had a home, and that home was in North Beach at City Lights Bookstore. So here we are as a design community looking to create a home which will be the cultural nexus for the exploration and creation, dissemination of ideas across architecture and all disciplines, all design disciplines, in 3 different mediums: spoken word, obviously in the lecture hall for lectures, panel discussions, critiques, the written word, obviously in the bookstore, and the visual in our exhibition spaces. So it's a 3-pronged attack to raise and inspire the entire community and teach the community about creating and cultivating a rigorous design discourse amongst everyone of all walks of life. So you've seen the renderings. I'm going to skip over this. I don't think I need to drill down. There's a lot of incredible, one thing I will pause on is just the fact that how inspiring it has been to engage the makers who are completely donating their entire product and services to this project, one after another after another. So not only did you vote strongly in favor, the design build community is completely behind this as well. So I'm going to skip through these and go straight to the Q&A. And Paul, please feel free to take over.
Thanks for that overview, Josh. So I'm going to start on a very prosaic level because we're kind of architects talking with architects, and ask you a professional practice question. What was involved in the go, no-go decision for you and your partners when you considered competing for the AIASF and the Center project?
There was no-go because it's a rare chance. If you think about all of us, we're not necessarily all Renaissance people. I'm particularly not. My team can be, but we know one thing really, really well, and that is design. So how and in what forum can we give back to our community from the age of 3 and 4 on up? How can we give back in a profound way that will improve everyone's lives every single day? And we saw this project as an opportunity to do just that. So we were all in day one, and we're all in currently. So regardless of the financials, which I'm sure you all can imagine.
So looking a little bit sort of under the hood of your firm as you got involved with this project, I thought your firm's name, Aidlin Darling Design, implies broader focus, rather than just strictly architecture. And that was stated in my introduction. And I know your practice is known for an exploratory design process. So I wondered, what are the ideas and questions that you asked of yourselves when initiating the project?
Well, with all of our projects, we do a deep dive in context, in site, really kind of uncovering the layers of each respective environment that we're going to approach. And that includes architecture, product design, interior, landscape. Every one of those requires a rigorous R&D process. And when we peel that back, we do the same deep dive into our clients. And we question what their wishes are, and we test them and confirm that what they want is something that they will thrive within 10, 15, 20 years from now. So it's a marriage between the client, their goals and their wishes, and a given site, the opportunities provided by a given site. So it's all starts with research and listening, and then ultimately slowly iterating until everything starts to effortlessly click together in a singular entity in the final design, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Well, it does, especially that last part, because it does look effortless. In other words, from my eye, the design of the center is elegantly straightforward. But we all know that something that looks easy to do probably wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are some of the challenges and complexities that might not be apparent to those of us who haven't been to the site or who've seen only presentation material?
Great question. One of the tricks is that you actually have a very long, narrow existing structure that is quite tall. So the height is a tremendous benefit, but the narrowness created a challenge in laying out a highly flexible plan. Because one of the key things is there's so much diverse programming happening within the center that you need to be able to flex from a black box theater to an open plan. You need to have gallery exhibitions, rental space, and then this added dynamic cafe bookstore that we added to the program. And so allowing the space to breathe while not compromising the performance of the individual spaces was key. And the other challenge is it's actually a bifurcated elevation. So one half is at ground zero and the other half is 2 feet above. So we had to create a handicap accessible space by artificially raising the floor in a great portion of the space and then dropping down and ramping down. So it's becoming a topography, so to speak, to solve the equation of equity of circulation, which hopefully will appear effortless in the end, but we've spent more time on the ground plane than you could ever dream. And Stacy and David Heck will will confirm that, because it's costly. It's costly.
Well, I mean, you mentioned some other team members. Architecture is always a team exercise. There's a good team here of consultants and builders and a long list, as Jessica showed, of in-kind providers, product manufacturers, craftspeople. How do you approach working with this broad coalition?
It's been a wild challenge, to be quite honest, because at every step of the way, the incredible team on the board and at BCCI, our partnering contracting team, is coming up with new contributors. And some contributors can only create X or Y. For example, we are getting incredible lighting donated, or a certain percentage of the floor is donated, or a certain percentage of all the casework is being donated. So what has become a very simple gestural design is now compartmentalized into, we need all these different entities to speak the same language and complement one another. So we're editing out, replacing, and I mean, I can't tell you how many pitches I've given to manufacturers to basically give us their products. Whether like all of the lighting is given, all of the glazing, all the wood, all the casework. It's shocking how much is being provided in kind, but that takes dialing in to their custom product at every level. So it's basically 10 times the work that a normal building takes on. But the beauty of it is you're meeting the makers and you're engaging the makers in a very intimate way, and you're inspiring them to give their services and their product to the public as we see it. And, you know, I talk about the children all the time, like this is going straight to their heart, straight to their minds. So it's an easy sell for me.
It's way above and beyond what a typical commission would require. So I commend you for marshaling all these disparate elements and again, making it look elegantly straightforward in execution. You touched upon something in your presentation I thought was worth going into again and a little deeper. As I looked at this project when it began, as most of us did, I think, we saw it as a project as architecture for architects, a kind of inwardly focused exercise. But inasmuch as the new space is called the Center for Architecture and Design, how does that identity affect the mission of the project? Beyond a new chapter HQ, is there a broader and longer reaching purpose?
I believe so. I think there's an opportunity that we've been given and that we've offered the larger design community to come and partner with the center. And I mean, imagine if you had Jennifer Morla's graphic design displaying an entire wall, while you have Renzo Piano lecturing in another room, and then you have kids from Hunters Point presenting and getting critiqued by elite architects from around the world on product design. Like, you have this opportunity pretty much once in a lifetime to have this much impact on a community. Why wouldn't you embrace the entire design world? It's about, I mean, if you think of any great museum, library, any rigorous institution that's been designed, it's a combination of landscape design, graphic design, interior design, product design, and finally architecture. And to teach the community about all those different fields and provide intellect and inspiration that not only can they contribute, but they can be involved in it intimately, is a gift that will last beyond our lifetimes. And so it only multiplies on itself, as opposed to drawing walls between the design community that actually don't exist in the design community.
Yeah, I'm so pleased that we can have a forum where we can talk about design as a holistic enterprise. And I love the idea that we can begin to discuss design and architecture together. The different aspects of building design have been parsed and separated from one another. And we do better as a community, and the results are better when we're coalesced as a group of disciplines rather than working separately.
To your point, I mean, we've built our studio on this premise, which is, do graphics, create furniture, design interiors, design landscapes. The cross-pollination of that medium, the various mediums, inspire one another to create more rigorous design. And that just has happened for the last 20 years in our firm. And it's like, okay, now let's do it for the public as well.
Well, speaking of doing it for the public, let's bring it a little closer to home and talk about what its effect might be on the public life of downtown. We've seen a decline in activity because of the pandemic, of course, particularly in retail, and the space will occupy a retail storefront, former retail storefront. So how do you see that this center might be a vehicle, along with other cultural institutions, to revitalize downtown?
It's a great question, and one that it's interesting because I've been meeting probably once a week with one tech giant after another, walking them through the space, talking about what the capabilities of this new institution can be, asking, for donations. And a lot of them have been talking about the possibility of downtown, the new growth of downtown, not in tech necessarily, but maybe a new art sector, because there's a lot of new space available. And so imagine if you have this pocket, around Minnesota Street, for example, which is a burgeoning art community. I think a similar rebirth downtown can happen as well, and combining it with commerce. So it's kind of like Bergmont Station of LA comes downtown to San Francisco in combination with more intimate and mom and pop tech startups. So that's a grandiose vision, but maybe it's possible.
Very interesting. So I got to ask one more question on our behalf, and then there's a question from the floor. So how's the chapter been as a client?
Great question. The beauty is there is tremendous common respect about how difficult it is to build anything in this economy. We all know every single one of us in every firm that is online right now is facing challenges of just building interiors, landscapes. Anything is so costly, and they've been respectful of the design diagram. They've been respectful of all the craftspeople coming in and the value that the craftspeople will provide the center. So in many ways, they've been very hands-off and inspirational on all levels. I think that the interesting thing is that collectively in the last year and a half, we realized that the potential is greater than when we started. In other words, the programming potential that Stacy and Amy are now envisioning is much broader than we originally talked about. And that's exciting when your client starts shooting higher and higher and higher than when we started, which is, I think, a compliment to the collaborative process. It's a huge, so.
Well, great. Architects make great projects, but they need great clients to do.
Exactly.
Really happy that it's a good marriage thus far.
And I should also mention that how inspirational the board has been. We've had numerous meetings collaborating with the board on fundraising, and it's a barn raising, and everyone's been in full steam. And we all can see how rich this can be, and we'll look back at how hard it was to lift, but the lift will have been well worth it.
Yeah, we're getting ready for more lifting.
Real lifting.
Spelled out the potential here, so now we have to really make it happen. So we have a question from Clark Manis. So I'll look to Carson to help facilitate that for us.
So I'm here. So Josh, always a pleasure to hear you talk about the passion. So here's the thing that I would love you to sort of expand on, because this is a really pivotal moment that the center is becoming less about the profession and the AIA and more about the family. And I think Howard asked the same question about the public being involved in what we do and how they can do it for our city. Now, I know we have this great aspiration for a much bigger regional play, but I think so if you could talk about that as you have talked to people and why you think it's so important that we got here, that would be great.
Well, again, I look for many of you who have been blessed to travel with your families throughout the world. You look like I'm looking downtown right now, and I think we would all acknowledge that 80% of architecture is not something we're proud of in the United States. And that's harsh to say, but I think we can do better. And I think you look at different cultures and their reverence for design at a very young age, and their reverence for the family members that go into the design world is incredibly high. And they're like, whether you're walking in a city in Japan or Scandinavia, everything is designed to the nth degree. The stop sign, the bench, the muni, public transportation, everything is so considered. And I think we need to, as a culture, pause on focusing only on making money, which I think the American culture can, and think not about quantity always, but a little more on quality, or a lot more on quality, that will improve everyone's lives. And so I've watched the inspiration live time with my own child when they walk in and they see a stunning design exhibit, and they walk out and they're sketching away, and they're like, every child should be getting that opportunity. And every child should be talking to their parents at dinner about the difference between the design of San Jose and the design of San Francisco, the design of Oakland, and all the elements. I mean, it should just be part of their lexicon. And that's a big ambition, but I think you have to start somewhere. And actually, we've been talking about how this can, if this is successful as we hope, this is a pilot program for every city AIA to take on. Create a design center that will then multiply the discourse on design in each and every city in the United States. Does that answer your question?
All right, thanks so much, Josh, for all
You're
your
welcome.
insight, your support of the chapter, and thank you all again for attending AIA San Francisco 2021 business meeting.